It's April 25th. Welcome to YesToHellWith.com. Up to this point, we've examined the role of the prosecutor, the incentives that shape their behavior, and how charging decisions create leverage before a case even begins. Today, we move into something far more serious, something that strikes at the very heart of justice itself, the withholding of evidence. Now, under the law, a prosecutor is required to disclose evidence that is favorable to the accused, evidence that may prove innocence, reduce culpability, or undermine the government's case. This is not optional. This is not discretionary. This is a constitutional requirement established clearly in Brady versus Maryland, 1963. And yet, despite that clarity, violations occur frequently and often without consequences. Now, think about what that means. If a prosecutor is entrusted with a duty to seek justice but withholds evidence that may exonerate the accused, then the process is no longer about justice. It becomes something else entirely. Control, outcome management, preservation of a case rather than the pursuit of truth and justice. Now let's bring this into the Liberty Dialogues framework, because this is where the issue becomes unmistakably clear. At this stage, we are dealing with proof versus presumption. When evidence is withheld, the record becomes incomplete. And when the record is incomplete, the outcome is no longer based upon full truth. It is based on a curated version of reality. And a curated version of reality is nothing more than structured presumption. And let's call it what it is. It's a damn lie. Now understand the severity of this. When a person stands accused, the government is required to prove its case, not partially, not selectively, but completely. And if information exists that contradicts the government's position, that information must be disclosed. Because without it, the accused is not defending against the truth, they're defending against the damn lie, the prosecutor's coveted narrative. And a narrative can be controlled, shaped, and manipulated. Now here is the critical insight. Most people assume that if something is not presented in court, it does not exist. That assumption is dangerous because it places blind trust in the process instead of examining the structure. Within the Liberty Dialogues, we do not assume completeness. We test it. We ask, what evidence exists? What has been disclosed? What has not been disclosed, and why? Because if evidence exists that alters the outcome and it is withheld, then the entire proceeding is compromised. Not flawed, compromised. Now let's take this one step further. Even when Brady violations are discovered, what happens? In many cases, the conviction stands. The prosecutor faces no real consequence, and the system absorbs the violation and moves along. And that angers me. Now, why does this happen? Because the system is designed to preserve itself, not to dismantle itself. And that is a hard truth, but it is a necessary one. Because once you understand that, you stop relying on assumption and you begin requiring proof. Now let's bring this back to first principles. Authority. If authority is exercised without full disclosure, then it is not being exercised lawfully. Jurisdiction. If jurisdiction is asserted while suppressing material facts, then it is not being established properly. Standing. If the government's position depends on incomplete information, then its standing is weakened. Obligation. If the accused is responding to a partial record, then no true obligation has been fully proven. And enforcement. Under those conditions, it becomes nothing more than the execution of presumption, or the damn lie. So the question becomes, how do you respond not emotionally, not reactively, but structurally. You require disclosure. You question completeness. You test the record. You do not assume that what is presented is all that exists. Because once you do, you surrender the very mechanism designed to protect you. And that mechanism is truth. And as always, may truth reign supreme.